Welcome to the Courage to Live podcast. My name is Josh Bitsko, and I'm a retired police captain with 24 years of experience out of Las Vegas. Currently, I travel the country and I teach people about courage, leadership, and resilience. I'm joined by my co host and wife, Jenna.
Hi.
And before we get into the part two of Loki, my canine partner's story, and some of the different calls that he's been on, I think we wanted to maybe give a shout out to the Dodgers.
Yes, I am the world's biggest Dodger fan. So I'm super excited that they're in the playoffs right now and potentially going to the World Series.
Again, sarcasm button. She begrudgingly became a Dodgers fan when we got together. Although last year when Freddie Freeman hit that walk-off grand slam, you seemed pretty excited.
I cried a little.
Yeah,
maybe.
It was a great sports moment.
Yeah.
Although we are going to have a house divided.
Yes.
Because two of our kids are Mariners fans, and it's looking like the Mariners have a good chance to get into the World Series, and so do the Dodgers. I mean, it's not over. It's baseball, so anything can happen. But it's going to be a little stressful in this house, I'm guessing.
I'm just going to lock myself away in a room.
With the Dodgers on, though.
Sure. Also, happy anniversary.
Yeah.
It's our anniversary today.
Is it today?
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
October 22nd.
Yeah. Well, happy anniversary. I promise I didn't forget.
Thank you.
We recorded this a couple days earlier, so it's not as bad as it sounds. Just for the record, I do remember our anniversary. You got me, though.
Feel like a panic.
Yeah. I mean, when we get into a later podcast about fear, that comment right there is going to come up.
Yeah.
So when we last left off, we were talking about Loki. We talked about his first bite with the two suspects, one of which shot a police officer, and kind of how he was like prancing around and knew that, he was going to stay at that point because he still had baggage. And I'll say throughout his career, he always had very similar baggage. He was just a very excitable dog. And we would go on calls and I can tell you this dog loved working. And we would, work for 10 hours, search. I remember I would track my steps, and I was always in 20 to 30,000 steps a night when I was in canine. So we would work hard. So he'd get home, he'd crash, but then like a couple hours before it was time to go to work the next day, he'd be whining or barking in his kennel. So for police dogs, generally they live at home with the handlers. I know military dogs have kennels, but for police dogs, in at least in the States, you'll have I had a 12 by 6 foot kennel in my backyard, and that's where he would, live. I mean, obviously I'd let him out and let him in the house and play with him in my backyard when we weren't working. But generally we'd have a long shift, a 10-hour shift, and he would crash when we would get home for a couple hours. But he had such an insane, he knew the time and he knew when we were going to work and when we weren't. So he would start whining or pacing or barking in his kennel because he's like, hey, and if I took a day off, he would get mad because he knew he wasn't going to work that day. I mean, we'd start our shift. I'd generally go grab coffee, and he was just so excited to be in the truck. I mean, I spent more time with him than anybody else in my life. And he would listen to the radio. So when there was a code red, which means there's an emergency on a channel, like someone's in a foot pursuit or a fight, he'd start whining and pacing and barking because he knew the next step was we're going to go to a call and have fun.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about his personality a little bit. How would you describe him? And did he have a personality?
Oh, he definitely had a personality. I would say I laughed out loud working with him more than any other dog or human I ever worked with, just because although he was quote unquote scary because he, went through a lot of handlers, he was generally a very happy dog, loved to work, always trying to figure things out. His common misconception is people think police dogs are really intelligent. I would never say Loki was smart. And I've had smart police dogs, and smart police dogs aren't always a good thing because they try to figure out the problem and beat you to the punch. Whereas Loki, if I told him to go run into that wall, he'd go run into that wall because he trusted that if I said something, what he wanted was on the other side of it. But he was generally happy. He was affectionate once he got out of that everybody's scared of him. Like I could take him to a school and we do what's called a demonstration where we have the person in the bite suit, the kids all come out and watch. And, we show a couple different tricks like handler protection. Like if I'm patting the person down in the bite suit and he goes to attack me, Loki will protect me. And so then afterwards he would go and the kids would pet him. And like he was really turned into just a dog with a job. Now, because he loved work so much, I always had to be careful because he would sometimes switch into that work mode when he wasn't supposed to. So I always had to keep a close eye on him. But yeah, he just generally enjoyed working and life. He was a little mischievous. I used to have a really bad energy drink addiction, like two a night. It comes from working graveyard for so long. And if I didn't close the cage when I got out of the car, he'd steal my energy drink and take it into the back of the car. And the last thing he needed was more energy. Um,
How was he just, could he pour the can out?
no, he would grab the can, take it back, and then just destroy it and lick it all up from the bottom of his kennel. Like, he would snatch gloves or my lunch if I left it up there. And he knew because the second I came and opened the door, he's like, I'm sorry. But like I said, I have like one of the funniest stories I had with him. It was another prowler call, like we talked about in the last episode. There was a lady home alone with her small child, and she heard her back slider break. And so I get there with another officer, and the slider's shattered out. She's calling from an upstairs room. And so I couldn't send the dog in without getting her out first. So I grab the officer, we go to her room, open the door, take her out. But I hadn't cleared the whole house. We were just like trying to extract her and cover what we could. And then I sent Loki in, and he's in searching, and he would search fast. And he was like a heat seeking missile when he was looking for a bad guy. He knew what was going on. And he really played off my emotions too. I had to be very careful that I wasn't up here, even if I felt it inside, because he would play off of that and sometimes get so much that he would no longer be as effective.
Which is exactly like a human, right? As a leader, if you're up here, your team's going to feed off of that too.
Yeah. I actually learned a lot about how to control how I outwardly express my emotions as a leader working Loki, because he was so, I mean, all dogs are to a point, but he was so sensitive to my emotions. So he knew like, oh, this, we have a broken slider. There's probably someone in there. I got there really fast. So I send him, and then upstairs, he goes up the stairs. I'm at the bottom of the stairs, and I hear just a commotion, things falling and knocked over. And I'm like, oh, he's got him. Like, so, and listen, it's there's a dichotomy there is no, I don't ever want to hurt anybody. I give announcements, give them an opportunity to give up before I send the dog in. People know exactly what's going to happen. But there's also some reward to spending all this time and training a dog and watching them find somebody or, even bite them and apprehend them. So I'm like, he's got someone, let's go. So we go upstairs, and there was a life-size Mickey Mouse doll in like the loft of this house that he was absolutely demolishing because he searched the whole house, did not find anybody. And out of frustration, he's like, Mickey Mouse will do. And he's just tearing it up. And so I laugh. I tell him to release. I double check. We clear the rest of the house and go out there. And, it's like, hey, sorry about your Mickey Mouse doll.
Yeah. What'd you do with it?
Oh, so I tried to put other like stuffed animals on top of it, and then we just left. Like, sorry.
So actually, it wasn't sorry about your Mickey Mouse doll.
Well, if she would have asked me about it, I would have apologized. So, and there were a couple of times that kind of stuff. How he knocked stuff over. I mean, he ran through like have you seen the Minions movies?
Yeah.
He had the nickname the Purple Minion from one of those because it was like all wild, and that was everyone's just call him the Purple Minion when he was working because he was just a wild child when he was searching. And like,
did he knock over a vase in a wealthy person's home?
Oh, I told you that story. I didn't know if that was podcast. Yeah, so
sorry,
we were in a really nice house in a really nice area of Vegas, and he's searching it again. It was the door was kicked in, and he's running through searching, and he goes into like it's like a formal room, I guess it was a very nice house. And
Something that we don't have in our home.
no, we don't have a formal room.
No.
Um, and he hits a table and knocks this big vase over. And so we finished searching the house, and I go out there. I'm like, hey, you guys have cameras inside? I'm like, no. Okay. Hey, the suspect knocked a vase over. We got to go.
Sorry.
I think the statute of limitations is up on those things. So I'm okay to talk
Hopefully.
about it. Hopefully. Yeah. I'll be getting a bill in the mail.
So what was your okay, so that's a funny story about Loki. What was your favorite story about Loki?
Oh, I mean, there's so many, like, you work every night, you search, you like some people would always ask me, what was your favorite find? And a find is when like somebody runs and hides and you go out there and the dog uses their nose, they can smell them and they find them. And my answer was always the last one, like, because everyone was fun and special. But I would say we had one where there was a mentally ill man who had hit his mom with a baseball bat, and he was out in the middle of the street hitting cars, and he was, like I said, very, like, he had issues. And so they called for canine. I get there and there's like 15 cops basically surrounding this guy. He's still like 50 yards away, but he's holding the bat, he's not dropping it. They're trying to de-escalate it, they're trying to talk to him, but he's like switching in and out of, like, he's jumping around, says I'm a rabbit, and then like jumping around, and then gets violent, starts hitting the ground and hitting cars with baseball bats. And so, this was, obviously we have other tools, we have tasers, we have beanbag rounds, a beanbag shotgun. But sometimes those things don't really work too, especially if somebody is, it was winter, so he's wearing thick clothing, so the taser might not be as effective. If they're not feeling a lot of pain, the beanbag rounds aren't. And so I tell the sergeant that's there, I'm like, hey, let's keep talking to him. We don't need to rush up there. If he comes to us, if he crosses that car, you're going to have one of your guys deploy a beanbag round and shoot him with a beanbag, which is non-lethal. It hurts, and people a lot of times think that they were shot, so they fall. And I said, when you do that, I'm going to deploy the dog, and I'm going to tell him what's, like, same thing, giving him announcements. If you don't drop the bat, I'm going to send a dog. He's going to bite you. And so after about 10, 15 minutes of me being there, he starts walking towards us, quickly, like with the bat over his head. And I'm telling him, hey, you need to stop. You need to drop the bat, or I'm going to send a dog. And as he gets past a certain point, they deploy a beanbag, which distracts him enough. And the reason I wanted that, because I knew once Loki was biting anybody, because he was very enthusiastic on a bite, I knew that, he wouldn't be able to get a clean shot hitting him with a bat, especially before I could go up and go hands on. And remember, the whole intent of this is to not use deadly force, like not to end up shooting and potentially killing this suspect who's very mentally ill. So when he got close enough, they hit him with a beanbag round. He turned and distracted him, and I deploy Loki. And the reason it was cool, because Loki literally launched and ended up hitting him right in the shoulder. Bat goes flying, he goes down. I go grab Loki, get him off the bite, and but again, it's like on top of everything else, as far as like putting training and seeing it work and all that, but he also saved that person's life potentially, because who knows if a taser would have worked, who knows if anything else. And that's why they are such valuable tools. So I was really proud of him in that one, because in contrast to the other story that we told where he was biting the guy that had the gun and we ended up having to kill him, like, that to me felt like a failure. Whereas this is with the intent. This is what we want, is we want to not have to use deadly force on people. And again, it's rewarding to put so much time and effort into a dog, especially a dog that may not have made it with another agency or another handler. And, I was able to be very patient with him and get him to that point where, I could use him in that manner to where he could save somebody's life.
Yeah, it was probably very rewarding on many different levels. You essentially saved his life. You got him to a point where he was not only just a good dog, because you had to teach him how to be a dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also a really good police dog. So that had to be very rewarding for you too, and very proud, like a proud dad.
Yeah, exactly. I was very proud of him because early in his career, so he had a thing with biting the leash, and we get a call. It was after hours, but it was at a church in the northeast side of Las Vegas, and there's a guy that was walking through the church parking lot firing a gun in the air, and the officers get there. He takes off running. They say he has a gun in his hand, and so this was like literally right after I certified with Loki. After the training, you have to go through a certification. And I get to the church or the area, and there's a church and some businesses, and I start doing a search. And I knew Loki could find somebody. I knew he would search, but I didn't know how he was going to react. And I get around to the back of one of the businesses next to the church, and Loki's an odor, which means I can tell by looking at his behavior that he smells a bad guy. He's excited. His nub is wagging, like his ears are up, and he's just like, okay, he smells something. And I come around the corner, and literally this guy, I don't know what he thought he was doing, but those like plastic milk crates, there was a big stack of them, and he was sitting in front of them, and he had just one milk crate on his head, like a child who didn't want his parents to see him sneaking out after bedtime. Like, if I can't see you, you can't see me.
Except he could see you.
He could see through the milk crate.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yes.
And so I start giving him commands, and he's not listening. And Loki gets so amped up. And this is before I introduced him to, my kids and really gave him the ability to calm down. He just turned and bit the leash and wanted to let go of the leash. And so the guy finally started listening, taking him into custody. And I was so like frustrated and mad at him because if that guy pulled a gun or whatever, I'm having to worry about him biting the leash and not focusing on the suspect. And I remember calling the trainer. I'm like, I'm done with this dog. And he's like, that's when we had the conversation of, you need to introduce him to your family. It was in the parking lot of that church. Because he could just tell how frustrated I was with him, because I knew he had so many skills to be a great police dog, but he would just get so worked up that he couldn't focus anymore. And, that was like the low point after we certified. That was before, he bit the guy that we talked about in the last episode. That was his first real find. And it was a lot. I mean, you get out what you put into a dog. It was a lot of work. Like, it was nightly training, recreating situations like that, calming him down, letting him be a dog, but at the same time, holding him to standards that I knew that he was able to do. And, he slowly got better. Every once in a while, he would still bite the leash, but what would happen is he'd bite the leash and then let go and look forward, because he knew he wasn't supposed to do that, through, correcting the behavior and all of that. But, I think another reason I was so like connected to him, and when I think about him as being one of, the better police dogs that I had, was because I put so much work and so much effort into him. Like, I wanted him to be good, and it took so much that it was more rewarding when he would be successful. So I was proud of him through everything that he had done and been through.
Well, again, that's not like you can compare that to human beings too, right? I mean, I'm sure you had people that worked for you. I had people that worked for me that you could see the potential. You could see even our teenagers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see their potential. You can see exactly who they can be, but they need direction, and they need a lot of work, and they need you to pour yourself into them. And sometimes that's what it takes, but it is exhausting.
Yeah. And through all of that, also love.
Right.
And even as a leader, like, the best leaders were firm, would tell you when you were screwing up, but also you knew they cared about you. Right. And it's the same thing with the dog. I mean, dogs are very intuitive. And if you're always hard on them or you're always mad at them, they're going to shut down.
And both of us have found that for anybody that has teenagers, it's a completely different ball game. And so we've found that with our kids too. Same thing. You can see their potential. You can see just exactly this amazing person that they are and the amazing person they can become, but they're teenagers and their brain isn't fully developed yet. And you want to be hard on them. And sometimes you have to be, but also balancing that with love and also balancing that with not turning into an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But so as you keep talking about Loki, it's very relatable to human beings, which is not something I ever thought I would say.
Oh yeah. I mean, putting all that time into training a dog that also, again, if you mess up, could really hurt somebody or hurt him. So putting all that time into the dog, it's like, it's very rewarding, but it's also very time consuming. Can be frustrating at times. You have good days and bad days. Even when he like was older, there were times that generally if he made a mistake, it's because I made a mistake. That's the good thing about Loki is he was pretty predictable. He was wild, but he wasn't so complex that I didn't know what he was thinking. Oh, I want to bite this person. Or, we call them pet the dog demos. And there was a SpongeBob like in a suit. He wanted a piece of SpongeBob like that. And I could tell, I just saw him. I look at him. He's like focused. I'm like, no, I ended up putting him up because SpongeBob came too close and I wasn't like on him. He was going to bite SpongeBob.
Were there kids there?
Yeah, it was like a festival carnival.
Okay.
And what would happen is these events would put in requests to have police dogs there and we would go and, let kids. The good thing about a police dog is they bring down barriers with the community. Like I may not want to talk to a cop, but most people love dogs and they'll want to come up and pet the dog and then you can start having conversations with them. So it was a really good PR tool for the police department and a community outreach tool. Unless SpongeBob's there, because that would definitely have ended up on YouTube if a police dog attacked SpongeBob.
Yeah, can you imagine?
No. But again, why I bring that up is had I not been paying attention to him and just standing there talking and he bit him, that would have been my fault. And I used to stress that to my handlers too, is like, if your dog bites someone they're not supposed to, it is always your fault. Like you should have been reading the dog. You should have been communicating it, take him out of a bad situation, even if that situation is SpongeBob walking around a carnival. So he was a little wild, but he was also pretty predictable because he only wanted a couple of things: food, affection, and excitement. I mean, that was really, those things is what he wanted out of life.
You too.
Yeah. Just like me.
Yes. So would you say that one with the milk crate was your most frustrating story, or do you have like a story where you were the most mad at Loki?
I would say there was that experience. And then they were all when he was new because we've developed a bond. And even when he would make mistakes, like I was pretty patient with him. When we had to certify, so like 2 weeks before that, now Loki would bite me, but it was never like aggression. Like dogs have rank drive and I want to question, I'm in charge. I had dogs like that when I was in canine, that I want to be in charge. I'm not going to accept you telling me what to do. They'll challenge you and you have to correct them. You have to alpha roll them and whatever to correct that behavior to show the dog that no, I'm in charge. Every time he bit me, it was like, oh, I'm so excited. All this is going on. And like, he grabbed my arm, but it was always like hey dad, this is exciting. Let me go bite him or something like that. Like I never read it as any kind of rank. I'd still correct it, but it wasn't as harsh of a correction as it would be if he's challenging my authority. But I had one, and this wasn't, again, not a challenge, but there's a part of the certification where you have to weave in and out of people walking to show the dog is sociable. So it's an easy test as part of the certification. You have 3 handlers that are walking forward, and I have to do basically a figure 8 around them. And when I was doing the figure 8, I stepped on his paw. So my fault, right? And he bit me in the leg. And any bite is a fail. So, and the raider didn't see it. So I just kept walking like it didn't happen. And I could feel like the blood trickling down my leg, because that was probably the worst that he ever got me. Because usually even the bites in the arm, they were just like almost like a love tap. And so I couldn't even show it. Finished the certification. I want to say that was the last test that we had to do. And then I go put him in the car, and I'm like, "You jerk!" Not what I said. That is not the word. But we're keeping this also YouTube friendly.
Yeah.
And patched up my leg and went. But I would say, because his intention was always to work and to find the bad guys and all of that, there were times, he'd bite the leash. I would get frustrated with him. But those are the two times, like the one time but again, it's like, if I stepped on your foot, would you like push me away? Yeah, probably. So I stepped on his foot. He can't push me away. So what do dogs do? Especially dogs that have drives like that are a little sharp, that'll bite at you. So yeah, I mean, those were the main times. Other than that, I just had a lot of fun with him. I mean, he would, like I said, he would crack me up, and just how he viewed the world, things that would surprise him. He, he had a disdain for cats. Like he would go after a cat if we saw him. And until one day in Northeast, we're clearing a apartment complex, and he's jumps up on a balcony, and there was like this big, this cat was like a panther. It was giant, and jumped up and got him across the face pretty good. And then the cat followed us for like 2 buildings as we continued to search. He was not even searching. He just kept looking back at this cat. After that, every time he would smell a cat, he'd stop. And so I knew that, because, a new handler, a dog's excitement over a cat compared to a suspect can be a little confusing. I mean, I'd worked him and worked dogs enough. Like, I knew the difference. Like, he put his nose down to the ground if it was a cat, and up to the sky if it was a bad guy. But, it's just made my job a lot easier, because I knew it was a cat right away, because he got beat up by a cat. How embarrassing.
Happens.
Yeah, it happens.
Cats are scary.
Yeah. And this, like I said, this was a panther. This was a giant cat, biggest cat I've ever seen.
Cats scare me. Well, most animals scare me, but cats really scare me.
And they follow you.
They follow you. They suffocate kids and babies in their sleep. Please don't come at me, cat people.
The last episode was dog people. Now it's cat people.
I know. I'm just alienating myself over here.
Next time we'll hear about how much you hate birds.
Birds are fine.
Yeah.
But why don't you talk about, why do you think everybody in SWAT was scared of Loki? Because to you, he was a big goofball, right? And you thought he was funny, and you guys had a connection and a bond that you understood. But your explanation of everyone in SWAT with Loki was that they were very afraid of him.
Yeah. So he searched in a manner that was, I just keep going back to the word wild. Like, he would do the job. He would do what I told him to do. But like, he was very loud. So he wasn't great for a lot of SWAT missions. If it was like a hostage rescue where we had to be quiet, I would use a different dog. I'd grab another handler and say, hey, this isn't the best application for him. Just like cops, just like people. Some people are good at some things. Some people are good at other things. But if you had a really committed bad guy, and there was somebody that that you needed a very tough dog that's not going to give up, he's your dog. But when I would work with him, like, if there's a door closed, rather than like sniff the door and then maybe bark at it if someone's inside, he would bite the doorknob off. Like, in fact, his teeth were flat as he got older from biting doorknobs, or biting like a door jamb, or like, he was just very, I guess, wild. I mean, it wasn't even unpredictable, because I knew what he was going to do. But if from the outside looking in, like, there was one, SWAT search warrant we did, and there was an explosive breach, and I sent him, and it was like, he wasn't even barking. It was just like a constant like roar almost. Like, it was just like one long bark as he was searching, because he was also so excited. Like, much like humans in those situations, he had his blood was up, his heart was racing. And so he would, just go. And that can be, it's hard when you watch and it seems as he's out of control. But he never bit a SWAT guy. I never had a bad bite with him, which is surprising, other than the times he bit me. He was, I had to always be on with him. So that would be exhausting for me too. Even yard searches, even demos with kids or SWAT stuff. Like, I was on, and I had to be completely focused on everything that he was doing, because there were times like, hey, can you send him, like our stairs, our house, you can get to the kitchen from 2 different ways. And they're like, hey, can you send him and clear this room on the left? I'm like, okay, well, are there SWAT guys in the other room on the right? And like, yes. Okay, then no, because by the time I see him turn and maybe go for them because he's turned around and just sees somebody, then it's too late for me to call him back. So move them back and we can do it. So it just always had to communicate, always had to. It was just a lot more work than there were some dogs that work SWAT that were robots. You could send them out, they'd search, they'd tell them to lay down, the dog would lay down, and then SWAT would go take the room around them. Dog knew, like, oh, this is SWAT. They're my buddies. Loki, he was not as controlled as that. But so I had to make up for it. And I always just had to be on him. So he had definitely he was just quirky. And even SWAT guys or patrol guys that would walk with me as backup officers, just always had to be careful. I mean, I think I mentioned in the last podcast on that one with the guy with the gun. He's out searching and he runs back towards us, jumps up, puts 2 paws on the shield that Kai is holding, launches off, and just goes back to search again. I'm like, what are you doing? Like he's having a blast.
He's like a movie dog.
Yeah, a movie dog that could cost the studio a lot of money. But he was just, and everything he did was at 100. Like he had no halfway. Like, they always say they have these terms called, oh, I want a light switch dog that can turn it off and on. And some dogs do that. Like we would do demos and I'd just have a sleeve on and the dog would be biting me and they're like, okay, drop the sleeve. I drop the sleeve and say, go say hi. And the dog would come up and let me pet him. So that's like a light switch dog. They can turn on the aggression and then turn it off. Loki was a dimmer switch dog. He could turn it off, but it was never fast. And I always had to be like, just keep an eye on him. Make sure he wasn't like trying to figure out the situation.
Yeah. My favorite Loki story is, so I didn't ever get to meet Loki, but I think we might have talked about this on an episode before, but I'm unsure. I was the homicide analyst and there was a serial murder series going on, but it was by MS-13 gang here. They were trying to establish their territory. So they were murdering a lot of people and random people, and they would take them up to a nearby mountain here and dump their bodies on the mountain. And so I was the homicide analyst, so I was helping out with that. And I was doing initially some cell phone stuff before the FBI got called in and took that over, which was great because they should take that over. But so I was we had a whole task force set up and I was giving locations of where, according to the cell phone, the body should be on Mount Charleston. And I didn't know it, but Josh and Loki were out there looking for the bodies, and Loki found how many?
Well, he found one.
One.
And then, so yeah, we didn't know each other at the time. We found out later that you were the one feeding the data. And so I get up there and homicide's up there and like, hey, they stopped here at this turnoff for, like a few minutes. I doubt there's anything if you can just run your dog. And so Loki was a cadaver dog, meaning he had the ability to detect dead and decaying human, and as well as a patrol dog. So I'm like, okay, I'll go out there and search. And so I get out and this was the first one on the mountain that we found. And I go, I probably walked 200 yards and he's like, Loki's in odor already. I almost thought a homicide detective had gotten out in front of me. And now he's like, oh, I just smell a person. Come around a corner and, the victim was there lying there was snow. It was like wintertime. So he's lying in the snow. It was a pretty gruesome scene. And so I actually, because now I'm in a crime scene, the good thing is he got an odor so far away that I didn't even get into the crime scene, and I just picked him up because there's footprints in the snow, and I walked out in my footprints and I'm like, I found him.
But the reason I like that story is because when we finally figured out that we had kind of worked on something together, you told me that Loki was just like working nonstop, like did not want to stop searching, while you guys were out there.
Oh,
And I love that.
that was at the tail end of my canine career because I was promoting to lieutenant and his career too. So he was older at this point, like 10 and a half. And we spent, after that, because they thought there were multiple victims, we spent 3 or 4 days, 10 to 12 hours searching on the mountain. Both of our hips were hurting. Loki would not, I had to like meter how much he was working because he would just keep going. And like we would get done, get back to the house, and both of us are limping because that's hard terrain, right? You know, it's a mountain forest and all that. But yeah, and it was funny because we searched dang near all the areas that you had identified on the cell phone. There was one area left, and we didn't have a lot of cadaver dogs at the time. I had one other cadaver dog that was certified, so I called him out, and I'm like, "Listen, we're done. Like Loki and I are done. Can you just come take?" There's like maybe an hour of searching. The next spot, he found another one, and it was like, of course, it's a tragedy, but to do all this training, you want to find things with your dog.
Yeah.
Except my bomb dog. I never wanted to find anything with my bomb dog. I was perfectly fine never finding explosives with him. Um, but yeah, and so he found another one. And again, they're just such great tools. I mean, technology is getting to the point. There's drones and machines that can detect odor and particles, but they're not there yet to replace a dog.
So maybe talk a little bit about Loki and retirement, and then what happened.
So I retired when I promoted to lieutenant. Loki was, like I said, 10 and a half. Could he have maybe worked another year or two? Maybe. Switching handlers with the dog. So that's what happens. The dog either retires with the handler when they leave. I was promoting to lieutenant, or you switch them to another handler, which is, you can do. I mean, that happened quite a bit. If somebody had to leave canine or something like that, or retired, and their dog was only 4 or 5, you'd switch them to a new handler. And, it's not as hard on a dog as you think. I feed a dog for a couple of weeks. That dog's my dog now. They're just pack animals, and this is my new alpha. But
I think you probably just ruined a lot of people's lives with that statement.
Yeah, they don't like it when I say that. Yeah. But Loki was on the older side, will probably only get maybe another year. And on top of that, he always just had baggage. And so when he was, I was promoting, I went to the vet, and she's like, "Listen, his hips are going. He's older. He's like a running back in the NFL. Like he's everything is at 100. So his hips are starting to be sore. So he retired. We buy him for $1 from the department because it's department property. So I had to buy him for $1. And then I went on to my next job as a lieutenant. I was an administrative lieutenant at one of our area commands, and he became a house dog, which honestly was very difficult for him because although his body was falling apart, his brain was still young and wanting to work. He was not like, there's things that we did, like he got neutered. You don't generally neuter police dogs when they're young because you don't want to like remove testosterone and all of that unless there's a medical reason to do it. And so he got neutered, and thinking it would slow him down, it didn't. He would see me getting in uniform or going to work and be very upset because he wasn't going with me. So I'd sneak him out to another handler's house that I knew and let him bite a sleeve. I took him for, walks every day or runs as much as I could with his hips, throw a ball for him. But I can only do it so much because then he would start limping. And,
never want to stop, right?
No, he wouldn't want to stop. It's not like you couldn't tire this dog out to where he was just going to go home back and sleep. One time I took him out with my son to Lake Mead, and he had never really swam. I never did water training with him. Some guys do water deployment training, but I never did with him. And so I threw a ball out in the water thinking like swimming in the water would be good on his joints. And he ran out in the water and sank. And I'm waiting for him to come back up, and he didn't. So I tell my son, I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to go grab him." But now a dog, he's in survival because he thinks he's drowning. I'm like, he's probably going to bite me when I grab him. It's fine. And I like get halfway out to the water, and he like rights himself, and he's up, and like and then he did it again. Like he was again not afraid of much. And But yeah, I mean, that process of him transfer, it's like very much like me, like in retirement. Like I'm no longer a cop, and there's parts that I enjoy not being stressed out as like a captain and dealing with politics, but I still miss being a cop. So he made it a couple of years in retirement. And then he just got so bad that like his hips were so bad that I was helping him get up, and he was still sweet, but then he was in pain. So he'd get a little sharp when I was like helping him up, and had concerns about the kids. And he just, again, it was time. And it was right in the middle of COVID. I took him to the vet. I stopped and got him a cheeseburger on the way to the vet, and let him eat. He only ate half of it, which, I get him after a find, I'd run through a drive through and grab him a cheeseburger, even though the find was his reward. That's all he wanted to do. But those little rituals. So I got him a cheeseburger. He ate about half of it. He just was not feeling good. I had another handler meet me at the vet, and he took out the sleeve. The last time, it's what he loves, and so he gave him the bite. Loki didn't even stand up all the way, but he was biting the sleeve. So then I take him into the vet, and Michelle, she's like, he hated the vet. As you know, I told stories about like he would always try to bite the vet. They'd have to put him out for even like x-rays. And I took him into the vet, and he was in muzzle. And I'm like, I tell Michelle, I'm like, can I take the muzzle off? Just, he doesn't like it wearing a muzzle. If we're going to put him down, she's like, yeah. I'm like, it's fine. He's like he just doesn't have a lot of energy or anything. And she goes to administer. I'm sitting there just holding him. She goes to administer the medication to put him down. And the last thing this dog did on this planet was try to bite her. It was like his last words were, "I'll see you in hell." Like, I hate the vet. And then I sat in there. I cried like a baby. Like, I would say I'm generally a delayed emotions kind of person when dealing with like death or trauma or anything. Not there. I cried like a baby in that vet's
First
office.
time I've ever seen you cry.
Yeah.
It's about Loki.
Yeah. And yeah, I was a mess. In fact, like I said, it was in the middle of COVID. The vet was wearing like a whole, like, looked like Outbreak, the old movie Outbreak. And she's like, "Can I just hug you?" I'm like, "Sure." Cause I think she was surprised by the emotion from me too. So she hugged me. And then, yeah, it was a little bit of a mess. His ashes are still upstairs.
I didn't know we had Loki's ashes here.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's haunting our house.
Maybe it's Loki.
Loki
He's knocking stuff over, searching our house.
Yeah. It's a story for another day, but I almost got killed by a fake tree in our house that I think a ghost pushed over. But
yeah. So that's kind of, I mean, I have a whole book of all of his finds, and on the short podcast, I'm going to work in just telling little stories about him in there because I enjoy it, and I enjoy telling those stories, and you've heard them all. So,
well, I think it's a good tribute to him too.
Yeah.
He saved your life on more than one occasion, and he was a good partner.
He was a good partner, good dog. Could raise my blood pressure at times, but I was happy with him. So thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe or share it with a friend. Leave a review. I have more stories about Loki and the Courage to Live book that is available on Amazon. It's kind of weird. You have to search The Courage to Live by Josh Bitsko on Amazon. Sometimes it doesn't come up if you just put The Courage to Live. But if you're interested, I talk about him and his story a lot in there too. And I appreciate you guys spending time with us today.